It's time for another Dice Tower review with Z. Garcia.
Hey folks, today we are taking a look at a two-player card game called Kune versus Lakia. I hope I'm saying that right. And in this game, each player is a rabbit and the two rabbits are getting a divorce. You're royal rabbits as well. So the Duke and the Princess are splitting up and you are hoping to influence the court to kind of end up on your side and grab possessions. Basically, come out on top when the divorce is through. Super bizarre theme. Not sure who came up with this one, but is the gameplay as weird as this theme would lead you to believe? Let's take a look, and then I'll tell you if I think it's a good game. Here we go. So here's what the game looks like set up and ready to begin. Each player is given one of the two characters, the princess here and the Duke. And then these characters are laid out with 5 random cards above each one. And they are the ones that the players are going to try to influence to come over to their side so that at the end of the game, the player scores more victory points than the opponent. We also place the carrots down here to be able to later take some actions with them. And then each player is given a starting deck of cards. That is 5 cards. It has the letter of the character they are. So this is the Duke's deck. And then over here, the Princess's deck. Also, the Duke is given this edge card to begin with. And you are ready to begin. On your turn, you are going to be taking an action until you decide to pass. And then the other player will be able to take up to 2 more actions once you've passed rounds over. Okay? So your actions are, you can influence, you can counsel, you can plot, or you can pass. After which, again, the other player can do 1, 2 actions, then they have to pass. Or they can pass earlier than that. So influence, what does influence mean? It means changing one of these people to come over to your thinking, to basically work for you. They have symbols across the bottom here. And so, for instance, this card here, let's see if we can take a closer look at that. That card there has some symbols across the bottom, and it's a sword, a fan, and a crown. And so, to influence a character, I need to come up with those symbols on the bottom of my cards in my hand, okay? This one, for example, is a special one there. It gives me the crown plus the bishop hat or the fan. That's a pretty good one, because I can get 2 symbols out of that. I can get the crown and the fan out of that, and then I would just need the sword for that last one. So let's say I want to do that. I'm going to play this card, and I'm going to play this card, which has the sword. Both of these would go in my discard pile, my own discard pile, since it's a deck-building game. And so this character now is on my side, works for me. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change so that the color matches blue, which is my color. So I'm going to look in here for that character, and then replace this card with a blue version of the same card. All right? And so now they are on my side. They work for me. After I've done that, then I'm going to take a card from the deck of cards above them and put it in my discard pile as well, and therefore grow my influence, allow me to do cooler and better things later on. So that's the first action I can do, is I can play, I can influence a character. By the way, also some cards here have influence powers, which you just have to keep track of, and they would have triggered after I've influenced that person. Okay? So that's the first thing. Second thing is counsel. Counseling is very easy. You are going to take the carrot here below a character, put it on that character, and take the action that it says. In this case, take 2 cards from your discard pile. Great. I can only do this if that person is on my side. So the Duke can do it. The princess could not do that because, well, they're not working for her. So that's the second option there, counseling. The third option is plotting, which is playing a card that says plot and doing whatever it says. This one here, for instance, which I already discarded, has, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see that, but it has 2 plots actually, one for the Duke and one for the princess. And so depending on which character plays the card, it'll trigger one power or the other. Now, I realize this card starts in the Duke's starting deck. That's why it's got a K here in the lower corner. However, you are allowed to play the game where these cards that normally start in your starting deck are all laid out on the table and you draft them. So yes, there is a way for this card to end up in her deck instead. Okay, so that's basically plot. Play a card, do whatever the plot says, you're done. And then lastly, pass. That's basically it. So at the end of the round, you are going to shuffle up all your deck. We're going to take all the cards off the characters here. We're going to reset everything, and the decks will slowly run out throughout the game. But you get all the cards back in your hand. You shuffle up every, you don't need to shuffle really. You grab every card, and they are all in your hand. There is no shuffling and creating a deck and drawing an amount. You have them all. There's one more thing that's interesting with influencing these characters, and that is that if now that this person is on the blue side, if the princess influenced this character, it doesn't go to red. It goes through, it's either they don't care, which is the white here, or actually, really, it's not that they don't care, it's that they're not aware of what's going on. Blue, they work for the Duke, red, they work for the princess, but then, if she influenced this character, it actually goes to ambivalent, which is purple, which does have a power, and either player can use it. So, boom, doing that would, either player could do that, because they're not sure who they side with in this conflict, okay? So there is that. Some cards and some powers throughout the game are going to allow you to store cards, and what that means is you're going to take that card, remove it from your hand, your deck, and set it aside, and at the end of the game, that set-aside card is going to be worth 2 points on top of, whatever else everything is worth. So since I'm talking about scoring, let me show you how that works. It's actually quite a bit to scoring in this game. There's a lot of steps. I kind of wish they would have given you maybe a little score sheet, but it's not a big deal. There's just a lot to it. But let me give you a brief overview of how that works. So the edge card, whoever's still holding it at the end of the game, that's worth 2 victory points. And what the edge card does, by the way, throughout the game, is it allows you to do 1 beefed up power, and then you get rid of it. So it's sort of it's a catch-up mechanism, It's a way to help out the person that's not doing as well as the idea. So if you're still holding it, though, at the end of the game, 2 victory points. Every card you've stored, set aside face down. That's 2 victory points. Other cards have points in the corners that tell you how much they're worth. Every card, pretty much, should do that. And so, for example, this card up here in the corner, there's a little caret. In the caret, there's a little 1. Not sure if you can see that. That is 1 victory point. And every card in that little caret is going to have a number. That's how many points you score. Some cards have attributes that, if you own them, and that's written in the box, they'll tell you if you win some points, lose some points. Sometimes you want to get rid of cards, whatever. And then these characters will give you points. And the interesting thing is that they don't actually give the same number of points to each player. It's in the rule book here. So let's show you that. It's probably going to be a little bit hard to see there. But in that box, it tells you how many points each of the characters is worth to each of the 2 players. And it's not the same. A little bit weird, but, it's one more thing to kind of watch out for. So be aware of that. So, for instance, this card here, if it's the Duke's card, it's 5 victory points. If it's the Princess's card, only 2. So, the Duke definitely wants this one. The Princess definitely doesn't want him to have it. That's the idea. And so that's basically it. Besides that, a blue or a red character is worth an extra victory point if they do not have a caret on them, meaning you did not trigger their power on the last turn. And besides that, anybody who is purple, if you have a card in your hand, in your discard pile stored, it doesn't matter, with a trait that matches that character, then that card is a victory point as well. You're going to add up all those things, and then the most points is the winner of the game. So definitely a game with a bizarre theme. The artwork is also kind of weird. It's not bad, but it's like whimsical in a strange way. It's somewhere between a kid did it, but it's too good for a kid to have done it, it's just weird. It's a weird looking game, and the theme is bizarre. However, as a 2-player deck building game with a decent amount going on, this is a good game. It's got some tactics. It's got the cards are well done. They're interesting. It's got hand management. It's got those actions you can take on the characters with the carrots. It's a solid card game, and I enjoyed it a lot. Now, I didn't like everything about it. I thought the scoring was a little more convoluted than it should have been. I wish it would have been a little more streamlined, but that's not a huge deal. At the end, you just kind of, you make sure your opponent and you are aware of what the scoring will be, and just kind of count it all up at the end. But the gameplay, the flow of turn to turn, is really solid. I enjoyed it a lot, and I think if you're someone who enjoys quirky games, or if you're someone who enjoys deck building or twists on that, I gotta recommend it. I think this takes deck building in new and interesting directions. It allows you to have all your cards in your hand, and in that way, it feels a little bit like Lewis and Clark, a bigger board game that did a similar thing where you had all your cards and you sort of had to manage your hand and pare it down carefully, and then you'd grab it all up again. And so this is very clever. The actions are interesting. The cards have a nice amount of variety in them. So, not a whole lot else to say here. Check this one out, folks. Kune versus Lakia. Thumbs up from me.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at DicetowerNetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.